Welcome to the HMO Property Show. By investors, for investors. Catch us weekly as we discuss all things cash flow positive property investing. Whether you're a seasoned investor, a new landlord, or just curious about property investing, this is the podcast for you. Sponsored by the Co-Living Collective, your trusted partner in creating vibrant and sustainable shared living experiences. Visit us at colivingcollective.com.au to learn more.
Welcome back to the HMO Property Show. I'm your host, Neil Gibb, and today I've got Susan Davies from Sharing with Friends on the podcast. Susan, welcome along.
Lovely to be here, Neil. Thank you.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining me. Today we're going to find out a little bit more about sharing with friends and your journey and why you're so passionate about what you do, because I can tell you're very passionate. We were going through, I can't remember how I found your website, but when I found it and I seen the title or the name of the company, I just knew instantly that I had to reach out to you and connect. So I'm really glad that we connected and we get to spend some time together now, finding out more about you. So
thank you.
Tell us a little bit about Sharing with Friends and how it all came about.
Okay. Well, just to put the whole thing in context, let me just say what sort of housing model that we don't build. And that is, we don't build social housing, we don't build crisis housing, we don't even build transitional housing, we don't even build housing for rent. So what we do is build a permanent house for 5 older women, which has a lovely balance of privacy and shared space. So five independent units around a central courtyard, plus a 6th shared space where everyone can gather and eat meals together if they wish.
Cool. When you say around a courtyard, so these units are all separate from each other, or are they all under one roof like a room?
There's a run of 3 on one side and 2 on the other, and then the 6th one is sort of at the other end, at the top of the courtyard, if you like. But they're all on the ground, single level, for aging in place. So it's all been architect designed so that people can stay there for the rest of virtually, if they're lucky, for the rest of their lives. Yeah.
Fantastic. So you are a property developer, a builder, or a consultant?
We're the organisation, the foundation is a not-for-profit foundation. Yeah. And basically we started as just a bunch of people who, I think 5 of us were members of an international organisation called Zonta, which was set up 100 years ago just to, Zonta, I'm glad, to look at women and girls and look at empowering them. So many. We felt very privileged, and we are so conscious of how some people just don't get the start in life. And particularly education is one of the things. And that's one of the big issues. And domestic violence is another issue that we are very hot on. And it's therefore women's shelters. But then we started hearing these stories about women over 55 were the fastest growing at risk of homelessness group in Australia. And we just couldn't work it out because most of us were in that sort of category. And the thought of having precarity is the word that they use, precarious living and not being able to afford the rent or whatever we just couldn't believe it in this country. The numbers that were growing, and they're still growing at 3 times the number of older men. Hence, Sharing with Friends is about older women. We don't have any problem with older men sharing in any of the intellectual property or whatever that we have developed, but our particular target is older women who wish to live together. Some of them have been victims of or survivors of domestic violence, for instance, probably don't really want to live with blokes anymore. So it just suits for a whole bunch of reasons for 5 women to share in this sort of development that we have proposed.
Great. And being not for profit, how are the houses funded? How is the build funded?
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's basically a shared equity arrangement. So we are targeting. There's a missing middle. So as I said, on the one end you've got crisis accommodation. On the other hand, you've got your private home ownership.
Yep.
But sort of then there's a whole bunch of things coming in. But in the middle, there is this shared equity missing middle. So it's affordable home ownership shared equity model.
Got it.
So at this stage, we are providing the land. That's the equity that remains with the foundation. But the women at retirement, the average amount of super that a woman retiring today in Australia has is $137,000. So a couple of years ago when we started doing this, we set the price at 120, which was what the average was then. It will never be that again, but for this first prototype that we're building right now, that's been the entry price for the first 5.
Right.
$120,000. And they can own, and to retain our charity status, these women don't qualify for social housing. They're renting. They've got too much money for social housing, but they don't have anywhere near enough money to afford a house on the open market. And all the research shows that a woman retiring with about the average in her super of now 137,000 in 3 to 5 years, because she's renting, she has to subsidise the rent so much that in 3 to 5 years, all of that super will be gone. And then she's got nothing. She's still renting at unaffordable prices on the pension. And she's on a social housing waiting list. It's probably 10, God knows what it's going to be in a few years' time.
Yeah, I don't know what the numbers are like in Queensland, but there's currently 38,000 people on the social house waiting list in Western Australia.
Yeah, and they're building 5,000 a year or something?
I think they've just pumped quite a bit of money into it, but it's still nowhere near the amount that they need. So
they're never going to catch up. So, somebody just said there's just not enough government money in the world, in Australia anyway, to build enough houses for all of the people who qualify for social housing, let alone those who are just in that marginal area. And that's who we're targeting. And of course, we're leveraging their small amount of super by using all the pro bono stuff of all the people that are, the architects, the town planners, the engineers, the acoustic people, the water people. The builder is not doing it for free, but they're doing it at cost.
Right, fantastic, well done.
But we've just signed the contract for them to start, and it's the contract's $947,000. So that's just nearly $1 million.
Just for the 5 units?
That plus one.
Yeah.
Plus the 6 shared. Yeah, so six small units. Yeah.
That's that.
But we don't. But it will come down. Because we don't have to pay GST. We get that back, so it'll come down to hopefully just over $800,000 for us to build this first one.
Go.
Which is a bit of a gap between the 600,000 that the 5 women are putting in.
Just about to say that.
And what? So we're subsidising this first one. That's not the intention for the future, though.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because eventually you run out of cash, right? You can't continue to subsidise these things. No. So how do you intend to raise money moving forward to fill that gap? Because construction prices are the highest they've ever been. There's talk that they'll never come back down to where we need them to be. So, yeah, it
couldn't be worse timing.
Tell me about it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the big question. There's a lot of balls in the air at the moment, as you can imagine, because we're building and we're finalising the first 5, and I want to talk about that too, how choosing your neighbours. But So a lot of things going on. Even other local authorities are sort of talking to us about supplying the land. But then the entry price will be whatever it costs in that region to build. Yeah. But with our model and our good example, we think that we can modular, prefab, all of those things we're very much looking at around Queensland.
Connected with a guy in Queensland after this who does modular.
Yeah.
The other thing I was going to ask you about is statistics around the demographic itself. Do we have accurate numbers or enough numbers to give us a sort of indication of how bad the problem is?
Yeah. It is the question because we're really, our target group is women at retirement renting with the average amount of super. I mean, 40% of women today don't have any super.
Wow. Well,
you know, God knows, I don't even understand how that's possible. But anyway, so what was the question?
well, so what?
Numbers.
The stats around it, but I'm also interested to know why do 40% of women not have any super?
Family duties, never worked under the, got paid under the counter. I don't know.
Yeah,
they're older. It's a part of it is a function of when superannuation started to come in, which is really at a generous level was only 20 something years ago. So, if you're 65, 70 now, you were 50 then.
Yeah. So if we go back 30, 40 years ago, a lot of families could live on one income. So generally, the man was at work, the female was at home, raising the kids, looking after the house. And then the kids grow up, they leave the home. And as you say there, the female's never been to work and has not got the superannuation and the retirement fund that's required. That's
right. Yeah. Family breakdown, illness, all of those things. So many reasons. It's shocking. It shocks me as an Australian to think that my generation of women is we somehow see it as okay that they should not be able to afford a home, that they should be couch surfing, sleeping in cars, living in very unsuitable situations in families, living so precariously and with such stress every single day that they get sick. They really, I know I've met so many women in this situation, and the stress that they live under really causes a great deal of illness, a lot of autoimmune disease, sickness, that sort of thing. Anything. It could be anything, could be cancer, whatever. It's just that's what happens when you're stressed all the time and wondering where the next rental thing is going to come from.
Yeah. And they're kind of like the hidden homeless as well, aren't they? Because like you say, they're the couch surfing, they've just left a rental, they could be sleeping in the cars.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to get.
Very proud people.
Very proud people, yes. To the point where, do you feel like a lot of them don't ask for help?
And you never see them. You never see them.
Yeah.
When a few years ago, I was talking to my local GP and I was telling him what we were looking, and he said, well, you can just go out under the bridges and you can, pick them up and take them somewhere. As if you would find these women under a bridge. Never.
Yeah.
No,
you'd never pick it in the street either because they're still dressed well.
Mostly dressed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, the ones that I know, they've all been working all their lives. They've raised their families. They've looked after aging parents. They've contributed in their communities. Some of them have even university educations, although a lot of women have not had the education and therefore have, which is part of that superannuation problem, is that they have worked in sort of low-paid jobs, part-time, casual, low hourly rates and stuff. So they've never really been able to accumulate a lot of super.
Yeah. With the model that you've got, is it a kind of core living, core housing model? Are these units totally independent, or do they have like you said, that sixth unit could be the shared kitchen, and then in their bedrooms they've got a kitchenette, but not a fully functioning kitchen? Is that what we're talking?
Yeah, that's right. There's a kitchenette, so it has everything except a built-in oven.
Yeah.
And we have COVID to thank for being able to have a sink in the living room, because that was a hygiene thing. Before that, you couldn't even do that. You'd be well aware of that yourself. Yeah. Yes, so they have kitchenettes, which are with all the wonderful appliances now. It's a plug and play kitchen, really, so that's no hardship for most of us. And then so living, dining, and then a separate bedroom and bathroom. So about 35 square meters plus their own private courtyard out the back, and then opening onto the shared courtyard in the centre. And then the sixth unit has the shared kitchen. It's a shared kitchen.
Yep.
A large one.
Yep.
And eating arrangements, shared eating, and then a laundry and entertaining sort of communal spaces. Yeah.
Gotcha. And once these houses are built and they're tenanted, is there a weekly or monthly payment that the person that lives in the unit needs to pay, or do they just put their super in and then that's them housed and they've just got gas, water, and electric to pay for?
They pay. This is a bit of a hybrid thing that we've come up with. We've got some marvellous lawyers in Minter Ellison, and I heard you mentioning them in one of your podcasts, actually, about Minter Ellison in Western Australia.
Yeah.
They're an amazing firm and do us such a lot of good. They have come up with some unique tenure documents for us. The shared area agreement involves self-management as much as is possible.
Mm-hmm.
And we as the foundation provide a sort of a safety net, and they a bit like strata title. It's body corporate. There's the sinking fund and admin fund, basically. So all expenses are covered by the women.
Yes, great.
And maintenance and all of that sort of thing. So we really act. They're autonomous as much as they want to be. Really. And we act as just that safety net.
And can you tell us about how you pick these people to live together as well?
This is our secret weapon, because when you talk to people about co-living, as you would know, oh God, how would you ever live with anyone? A bunch of old women. But we have a lovely, on our board, we've got a lovely mix of property professionals and legal people and social workers, and I'm the ex-journo. So the social workers have come up with a wonderful program of 10 module workshops, and anyone who's interested in sharing with friends unit comes and does a workshop, and they learn all about everything: the finances, the legals, the design, the area, the whole thing. No, there's nothing that isn't covered. But the sneaky thing that we do is, of course, there are group bonding sessions that happen during these workshops. Yep. That people get to know each other. Right. Originally, we thought that 5 people would come to us as a group of friends and say, "Hey, we'd like to take one of these." It hasn't happened like that. So nobody actually has come more than as a single. None. Some have, but never finally signed up. So people meet each other, and the whole idea is we don't choose the 5. We don't choose who you're going to live with. You choose.
Right, interesting.
And in some organic way, which I think women are probably can be quite good at. That's what's happened. I, being the cynic, did not believe that this would really happen like that, but it did. It has. So I'm a believer now.
Brilliant, brilliant.
Yeah.
Can you give us a bit of background on the 5 women that you've just housed then, without any sort of privacy breach or anything like that, but a little bit of background on who they are and how they ended up in the situation?
Well, yes, two of them are still working, and but close to retirement. One is an intensive care nurse. One is she works in two of them work in aged care, one in more of a counselling role, one as a carer. And another one is a pensioner, and lives in social housing. She's got a very mild physical disability, and has lived there all her life and hates it. And because there is no simpatico with the people around her, she feels very vulnerable. She lives behind locked doors to feel safe. So she knows no one and gets to talk to no one. So you can imagine the difference with a group like this, for her to be able to live in that safety and security, and amenity and all of that sort of stuff. And she's the oldest one, and she's madly keen to get into IT, but I don't know. I would know. I know this intuitively. It's so hard to keep up when you haven't got family around you or friends to say, like you were telling me about, I would go up to the top of the screen and click on that and that sort of thing. She doesn't have that. So I see for her, this is going to be the most amazing experience of just being able to say, hey, Robin, can you just show me what I have to do? I can't get this screen to work or something. And that's going to change her life. Yeah. As you know, once you're tech savvy, you can do so much. Yeah.
Yeah. And once you've got people around you as well, we always say that the housing model that we've got, it ticks 3 boxes: affordability, convenience, and community, because we've got this social isolation and loneliness epidemic going on right across the country right now. And we've got all these people living on their own and, just being isolated from each other. So the model that you've got, the model that we've got, brings them back together. Yeah. And little things like you say there could be, how do I do this on the computer? You've got somebody there to do it as well.
Yeah.
And also that feeling of safety and security at night, knowing that you've got good people around you and you're not worried about who these people are.
That's right. Because she's chosen them. She's chosen. Yeah. We had a situation, because we're doing the first one, it's taken a lot longer than we ever thought. And one person dropped out of the first group, and so we actually had to go through the process of finding somebody else, and that was not ideal. But we did the public call, we ran the mini version of the workshop, we established their eligibility as far as our charity status and things like that are concerned, their own financial situation. And now it's up to the 4 to interview this group of applicants to create number 5. So, we're not, even though it would have been much more convenient to just choose one and dump them in, but of course we couldn't do that.
Yeah. So, what is the exit strategy if somebody, let's say you've got the 5 people living there, after 2 years one person decides to leave, or they meet somebody and want to move in with somebody else? What's the exit strategy that they've got in place?
Yeah. People, the residents get their housing contribution, which is their 120 or whatever it's going to be in the future, back, plus CPI, less refurbishment costs. Right. And of course that is going to be, that next one will be paid by the an incoming person. Right. We think this is going to be so desirable that we don't think there's going to be any problem. There'll probably be a bit of a queue or a list of people, a waiting list of people who would like to, come in if and when anyone leaves, or they can leave it to their leave the asset to their in their estate. But it's only the cash, not, we get to decide, or the residents get to decide who is the next person that comes in. You can't leave it to your nephew for instance,
True.
that idea.
True.
Yeah.
And what about legislation, Susan? I'm guessing there's a couple of things that need to be changed or need to be upgraded or are probably outdated for the model that you're trying to put in place.
Yeah. It's yes, we've had to jump through a lot of unsuitable hoops to get to where we are, and it's going to look great and it'll be fine. But if we want this to be this model to be taken up by community groups all around Queensland in a sort of a franchise type situation, even if it's a free one, we will have registered and documented the whole through Minter Ellison again, the intellectual property, so that to use sharing with friends, for instance, you will have to conform with the rules, basically about numbers and basically about exit strategies and finances and tenure documents and that sort of thing. We've done all that. We've created all that. But, and again, I've forgotten what the question was.
Legislation, like what what legislation needs to change for it to make it easier or more streamlined for you?
Yeah. Well, in the end, we've had to go with our architect is adamant that it's a Class 1A building, which is just a house.
Yeah.
But the powers that be have decided that is Class 1B, which is rooming accommodation.
Yeah.
So then we had to modify one of the units, and then we had to put in extra plumbing, and then we had to do this, and then we've got, so apart from the fact that it will probably have a change how it's rated and how the electricity is run, and all sorts of things, because rooming accommodation is not an independent household. So there's all these unexpected consequences that we've come up against, which we've had to compromise a little bit to do it. So we are now forming a coalition in Queensland, and any other state is very welcome to join us. Any listeners would be very happy to talk to them, listeners to the podcast, that we're forming a campaign of gentle density, which is to be able to have a model like ours, which we want to call a new category of community housing called seniors co-housing. And we want that to go in the appropriate schedule in the Planning Act. And that would mean that we can build a household of 5 women on the ground, looking like Annie's, pretty much a nice sprawling suburban house, as of right, on low density, therefore housing land.
Yeah. Okay.
And the size of the block that we have is about 800 square meters.
Yep.
And
how
can't get much smaller than that.
How big's the building footprint?
Sorry?
How many square meters is the building?
A good question. Don't know. I forget. So it's 5 by 35 plus, plus. About 80 to 90% site coverage, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Up there.
Well, there's the central courtyard, of course, which is quite lovely and open.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. And what are you excited about over the next 1 year and 5 years with sharing with friends?
Yeah. Well, it's that sustainability, Neil. Basically, what we are all trying to do is a new style of living, which has not been an Australian tradition up to now.
Yes.
But actually, there's some. It's not just second best. I think for so many people, it's first best. This style of living as one ages. So when you talk to your friends, they say, "Oh yes, we've always wanted to do this," blah blah blah. But the real trick is anyone can do it. Anyone can build a house and have a company title and design it the way they want. The trick is the exit. How do you sell your share when you want to go and get and there? Where's the market for it? Where's the thing? We want this to take off as a new way of living, a new style model of housing, a bit like strata title was in the early days, 50 years ago or whatever, when that was introduced. And so co-housing as a way of life that is affordable and dignified, and and ticks all the boxes. And then, but we have to make it sustainable, because we're offering 50-year leases to our residents.
Right.
So we have to be around. We have to stay around, and we have to be around to arrange that transition. The exit when people want to go. It's not like we can just build the first one and walk away. So we've got options. We could partner with a community housing provider of like mind. We can, but impact investing is possibly the way to go. It will then. We will have some proper numbers, dollars, figures to work with in terms of doing some feasibility studies for the future. So impact investing that's why we're very interested in all these wonderful podcasts you're doing, because there's a lot to learn. We can short circuit the shortcut to the learning curve here.
Every day is a school day, right?
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So we don't know. There's church land. There's so many options. And as I said to you before, we don't have all the answers yet, and that's our next step. Once it's sustainable in the planning sense, once the physical model is up and running and working beautifully, I think it's going to be a whole new ball game, and I think Australians are going to really flock to something like this and say, I'd like to be part of that.
Yeah.
In all sorts of ways, living, investing, whatever.
Yeah, excellent, exciting times.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before we go, tell us about the Teapot.
Oh well, we decided what is the best example of sharing that you can imagine, especially for some older women. And we came up with the Teapot logo, or our graphic designer did, and we had a teapot made. So right. I would like anyone to come once we've built Sharing with Friends at Darra in Brisbane, to come and have a cup of tea and sharing with friends.
Beautiful, beautiful. And if people want to reach out, if people want to see how they can help, add value, if they've got any contacts that they'd like to share with you, what we'll do is we'll put the link to the website and your email address in the show notes.
Info at it'd be great too. Yeah.
And then anyone that wants to reach out can reach out, and hopefully we can help build this dream
Very
together,
happy
right?
to share. We're a bit passionate, so we're very happy to share and talk to people about anything.
Yeah, we can see that too. Well, look, best of luck on the journey. I love what you're doing, and best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you tune in the same time next week so you can stay up to date with all cash flow positive property updates.